Direct from Kansas City, it's Comic Book Late Night with Captain Logan. Featuring brand new comic book reviews, thoughts on comic news, obscure character of the week, and a little something from the comic vault. And now, here's Captain Logan.
Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and this is indeed Comic Book Late Night. It's late, it's night, and that means naturally it's time for comic book reviews. Now I have been running late all day long, mostly because I've been helping Todd McFarlane finish up Spawn number 200, and I gotta say, considering I didn't figure it was going to come out until April, in my mind it's early, as opposed to being late. I don't know, I'm joking. I give Todd McFarlane a lot of flack for being so late on his issues, but, you know, what do I know? I mean, he's the bazillionaire, and I'm, well, not. I mean, you know, when you're running a giant mega action figure slash comic book, but mostly action figure empire, you know, when you're trying to juggle that with keeping up with hockey, I'm just not sure there's enough time in the day to actually get your books out on time. Spawn 200 is supposed to come out next week. It's going to have like a bazillion variant covers. Greg Capullo is finally coming back in and doing interiors with Todd again. It's going to be great. I guess the assumption we all have to make is that it just takes that much longer to make a book that size, regardless of the fact that they haven't been coming out very regularly. Anyway, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I really am. I mean, Todd seems to have this idea that the way you run a major empire like this is, you know, you can put things out whenever you want to. That's good business. And I can't argue with that because I'm going to buy it and I'm going to review it. So I'm not sure I can entirely argue. I don't know. What I hope is simply that I'm going to get a chance to read one more brand new Spawn comic, at least by the time my baby graduates high school. That's my hope. Hopefully that happens. Anyway, Spawn 200 coming out next week. I'm going to review it. It's going to be great. I'm just kidding. I think it's going to be fantastic. But it has been forever since we've had a Spawn comic. He's been like 9-10 issues behind. Hopefully he starts catching up again. But like I said, baby in high school. Hopefully by then. I got a great show for you tonight. We're going to have brand new comic reviews. We're going to do that right now. After that, I'm gonna have a trivia question for you. I'm gonna have obscure character of the week. All kinds of fun, new stuff. But right now, it's time for new comic reviews. Okay. Before I get into the brand new comics, I want to mention DC's new cover style this week, because it kind of bothers me a little bit. So this is what they're doing, and you'll notice that they're doing it on all three of the DC books I have this week. These are the DC books I'm going to be reviewing, and you'll notice something very similar about each of them, and that is that they have this pasty white background with the character in front and no other information really on the book. Now, the reason I don't like this is because, well, the biggest reason is because the price is larger than the title itself. So, there's the title. See that? Can you see? No? No, I didn't think so. That's because it's tiny. This is Batman Beyond #1. It's $2.99, which is probably easier to see than the title of the book. I don't know if they're going to keep doing this. I don't know how long they're doing this. Pretty much every DC superhero book this week looks like this. I've seen it on, I saw Azrael, I saw Superboy. They all look like this. And, I don't know, it's not terrible. I mean, you know, Batman Beyond looks cool. And they've been making a really big deal out of this particular picture in all the ads for Batman Beyond. It's okay. The problem is retailers, because people are going to walk into a comic book store and they're not going to be able to tell what this is right away. That's bad. I mean, I know my comic book store guy was complaining about that. It's not good for the stores. So that's the thing I really don't like about it. And it's just kind of generic. I hope they're not doing this all year long. I would be very surprised if they did. But anyway, the other thing is it's not that big of a deal for like a first issue or a single issue. This is Steel number 1. This is a one-shot. Not a giant deal. This is Brightest Day. This is Brightest Day number 17. Brightest Day has looked a certain way since the beginning, and now it looks like this. I don't like that. I mean, it's only about 6 issues away from the end, and all of a sudden it looks different. So anyway, I know I'm griping, but I just thought I'd talk about that for a minute. So on to the reviews, and we're gonna start with Batman Beyond number 1. Now, Adam Beecham's Batman Beyond mini went over so well, DC decided to take it to monthly, and I couldn't be happier. This guy loves this material and he knows how to write it. I've said this in the past, but he finds a great balance between keeping the spirit of the original animated show and mixing it with established comic book canon. So far, I'm not finding the story in this first issue nearly as gripping as the mini, but I have to remind myself it's a monthly now. This particular arc is only in 3 parts, and not everything can be a big, epic Batman history bonanza. We don't want every arc to just pull something out of Bruce's past and make Terry deal with it. And Beecham is very competent at giving us a story here that's much more focused on Terry than the mini was. The basic plot is this. A man named Jats, who worked in the metahuman evidence confiscation unit, is dying from being exposed to hazardous materials from his job. And he blames superheroes for his condition, so he steals the Matter Master's old magic wand from Justice League headquarters, which unexpectedly mixes with the strange chemicals in his system and gives him superpowers, specifically the power to turn substances into various other substances. Which is maybe a little cartoony, but it's classic supervillain origin stuff, and I'm always for new villains, so I'm pretty much okay with it. It becomes personal for Terry when Jats attacks a shopping mall where his family happens to be shopping. Terry's dealing with all the usual Terry stuff here. He's juggling being Batman with his regular life and trying to keep promises, trying to show up on dates on time. And while these are all tried and true conflicts, and they're frankly the reason Spider-Man resonated with people all the way back to when he was first introduced, after 3 seasons of watching it on the TV show, I think it's kind of time to move on. I know he has a friend who knows his secrets, but I think it's time someone else did too to shake things up a little bit. Otherwise, we're just gonna cover the same ground, and Terry never makes any progress as a character. So maybe have his brother find out, or his mother, or his girlfriend. But again, we've got a very skilled writer here. While most of the issue feels fairly old hat, there's a very strong bit between Terry and Bruce toward the end, where Bruce asks him if he can be objective, even though his mother and brother are in the mall, and Terry asks, "Could you?" The only new big addition that debuts here is the inclusion of the Justice League, who we're told in the mini have been wanting to recruit Terry. I'm looking forward to seeing what the book does with this, but my immediate reaction to them is that it's odd they're also young and that they look more like a Teen Titans group than a Justice League. This is a solid introduction, paving the way for what I'm sure will be bigger and better things to come. Oh, and you certainly don't have to read the mini to enjoy this, so if you're interested, go ahead and jump on now. Hey, let's go on to Brightest Day, number 17. Again, we've got several subplots all happening at once here. Some I'm really enjoying and some I really don't care all that much about. Surprise, surprise, turns out Firestorm really didn't destroy the whole universe, but that's okay. The last panel of issue number 16 was so cool that I don't really mind, and was instead transported to another universe where he has to protect the White Lantern. I like that this is here for a real reason and things are starting to gear up for the last few issues. It's been kind of slow-paced, but each major new development has been satisfying, and Jeff Johns and Peter Tomasi are good at rewarding their readers for their patience. The Hawkman Hawkgirl stuff is finally back, and there's a major development here that I won't get into. I'm still not digging the subplot, and I'm glad it hasn't been more prominent than it has, but like the subplot has been throughout, it has some of the most detailed panels and some of the best action sequences, and some of the best uses of color. There's some really cool purples that pop here. The thread I latched onto this time was Deadman reconnecting with his 98-year-old grandfather, who he never paid attention to before, and he's making up for lost time.
Boston has been learning to be less self-absorbed, and this is kind of his reward for learning that lesson. This could have been really sappy, but I found it to be really charming. The best way to make old people sympathetic and interesting characters is to show us what was important to them earlier in life. In this case, Boston's grandfather was a record-setting bike rider, so Boston takes him on one last ride. It's surprisingly touching. Okay, and now that one-shot, Steel number 1. Oh, I'm getting better. Steel number 1. This is a one-shot, like I said, but it's the beginning of an event that is threading itself through various DC books. The next part will be in The Outsiders. This is always just a way to get people to read series they usually wouldn't, hoping maybe someone will buy an extra one-shot or jump onto a series they wouldn't read otherwise. And while I kind of resist it, I understand why they do it. With tons of titles and only so much space to advertise in each book, I suppose they figure it's the only way to make people aware of certain books. This is a double-edged sword for me, though. I really liked it, and I really didn't like it. The thing that appealed to me is, of course, what got me to pick it up in the first place. And let's face it, it's the reason this arc is happening. And Reign of the Superman is obviously why this arc is called Reign of Doomsday. So while Steel is well written and all the things that make him cool are here, his nobility, his scientific brilliance, his bravery, his insistence on going up against big bad guys without superpowers even when the odds are against him, even I balked at how much is retread here, though. It's the original Doomsday fight all over again. Doomsday destroying Metropolis and wreaking havoc on its citizens, except Superman himself is nowhere to be seen and Steel is fighting him alone. And the new stuff seems kind of hokey and kind of questionable. Why does Doomsday seem determined to the point of having, gasp, a strategy to kill Steel? Now, on top of everything else, he can grow armor at will, fly, and adapt to death in under a minute. Exactly the thing I was afraid of is happening. You make a creature this powerful, and you're going to be hard-pressed to come up with a way to finally stop him that doesn't seem totally contrived and silly. Not to mention how silly it'll be if Doomsday doesn't kill a lot of people. And I won't give away the end of this, but at least he seems like a terrible threat again, as opposed to being killed as easily as he has been lately. And I want to know where Superman is. I mean, I know he's walking around the country, but this is big news. I mean, wouldn't he hear it on a TV somewhere and come running back to Metropolis? And I think that Steel just deserves better than this. I think he's a missed opportunity, and he's worthy of more than just doing a story involving the thing that got him popular in the first place. Now I'm going to tackle Carnage number 2. This one came out last week, but I didn't get it until today, and I'm still really enjoying what Zeb Wells is doing with Iron Man and Spider-Man here. They're just a lot of fun together. They have hilarious banter, and I like how that's juxtaposed with Clayton Crane's very serious, brooding artwork. Spider-Man standing around, waiting for Tony to let him press the button that will kill their sample of the Carnage symbiote is funny, as is Tony's reaction to one of the metal-suited henchmen's names who is sent to stop them. So they're all named after the colors of their suits, and one is called Burnt Orange. Tony says, "I need to call Rocket Racer and apologize for making fun of his name." I do have to question, though, having Spider-Man using the phrase Stark raving mad in a book where he's working with Tony Stark. 2 panels later, he mentions Tony's name, and it's clear that the irony of this didn't dawn on Wells. I thought it was hilarious. But this series is only 5 issues, and it needs to pick up the pace, I think. 2 issues into a book called Carnage, and Spidey and Iron Man haven't even gotten to Carnage yet. I'm also wondering just how interesting this scientist girl is going to be as Carnage, and how the symbiote will change her. The innocent bystander ending up with a symbiote has become nearly a Marvel cliché by this point, and I'm not sure I want this to be one more tragic story about someone who ends up with one, does horrible things unintentionally, and doesn't know what to do about it. This is turning out to be more fun because of how Wells writes Spidey and Iron Man together than it is about Carnage, and I am looking forward to more. Alright, those are my reviews, and now let's go on to a little bit of comic news. Okay, DC announced two really big things in their books this week. One is that they're going to start publishing letters pages again, which they apparently haven't done since 2002. And what's really funny is I kind of didn't notice for the longest time, and I guess I just didn't put two and two together, because I guess I figured they were doing it in some books but not others. But I've been picking up like a dozen DC books a month and hadn't noticed this. Yeah, they published the same letter from, well, one of the DC bigwigs in the back of every book, and so if you read a bunch of books, you always get that letter, and we don't have the letters pages anymore. Well, they're going to start bringing them back, which I think is really cool. I think it's really great that they're doing that. When I started thinking about this, I was a little bit baffled by it, because Marvel has struck me for the last few years to be a lot more impersonal with their fans than DC is. And yet DC is the one not publishing the letters pages, and Marvel has been. I don't think Marvel does it in every book, but they've done it in quite a few. And anyway, it's just really cool that they're doing it, because I think fans like to have that direct dialogue with the creators, and honestly, I think that's why certain YouTube channels are more popular than others. The ones that interact more with their fan base, and actually answer comments and take requests of things on their channels and things like that. I think people are just getting more and more used to that kind of thing. So it's interesting, because I think probably the reason they dropped it is because it's just old school, and with the internet and everything, it just seems kind of like an old class kind of thing to do, where we just don't really need that anymore. There's other ways to communicate with your creators, but I still think it's the best way. And the other thing I really like about it is that it just offers more reading material in the back of the issue. When comics are $3 or $4 an issue, I think it's good when they do whatever they can do to give you more stuff to look at. It's not saying that I want to pay for letters pages, but I'm glad that they're going to be there again, and I think we learn a lot more about our creators just by reading those letters pages. I know that when I go back and read old comics, I still read the letters pages. I find that it's just a neat bit of history. It's helpful. I find, I did my opening monologue about Todd McFarlane. I learned a lot about Todd McFarlane reading his letters pages, and trying to see just how consistent he could be with some of the promises that he made early on with Image versus what happened later on. You can kind of see things changing for him, where it starts as an indie company, becomes more corporate. You can kind of see a change in how he talks to his fans. It's really very, very interesting. The other big announcement they made, which is related to the first, is that they're going to be, and by the way, both of these big giant 2-page spreads at the back of a couple issues saying, boom, we're doing letters pages again. Well, the other one is we draw the line at $2.99. And they actually said that. We draw the line at $2.99. DC has pledged that they will not have their regular books over $2.99. Now, I'm sure we're still going to have some double-sized issues and things like that will be more. Naturally, you can't expect everything to be that price. But the regular, 22-page or whatever it is, books will be $2.99. And they've been talking about this for a while. It's nice to see that they're finally doing it. It's nice to see the competition between the two companies going where it ought to be. For a while there, it looked like they were both competing to see who could raise their prices to be the highest. Maybe that's not fair, but Marvel for a while there at the end of last year was saying, well, maybe we'll go to $2.99. And now they seem kind of arbitrary. Sometimes it's $2.99, sometimes it's $3.99. They'll be the same length of books, but a more popular book will be more expensive, and a less popular book will be less expensive. Now that they're now that DC is definitively saying we draw the line at $2.99, I think it'll be interesting to see what Marvel does, and I think that they will probably have to either do the same or they'll do some other kind of gimmick trying to keep us on board with them. But anyway, I just thought that those were both good, interesting things to talk about. And now, for a trivia question. What major DC villain was once an alien scientist called Vril Dox? Now, if you think you know, make sure you leave your answer in the comments below, and on the next show, I will be sure to mention you, and you'll get brownie points for that. I'll make sure to mention your YouTube channel and give you a shout-out. Vril Dox. Who was Vril Dox? And now, It's time for Obscure Character of the Week. Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by LexCorp, improving the quality of life through fear, distrust, and manipulation. Have you ever heard of General Glory? Well, he should at least look kind of familiar. Does he look a little like someone else you've maybe heard of? He's a DC parody of Captain America, and he honestly doesn't strike me as all that funny. General Glory first hit comic book pages in 1991 in Justice League America number 46, and has made only sporadic appearances since then. Like Steve Rogers, Joseph Jones fought in World War II, but gained his abilities by being exposed to an experimental nerve gas, and the government put him to work as General Glory. However, they tried to keep his existence a secret, so they published a fictional General Glory comic book, hoping to draw attention away from the real thing. Now, rather than being stuck in ice and thought out in the future, he was found decades later by Guy Gardner, his biggest fan, who grew up reading the comics. And he briefly worked with the Justice League until his heart gave out and he died. Too bad this story didn't happen after the death of Captain America. I mean, if you're gonna do an obvious knockoff, you might as well do some decent parody with it. We could have seen how nobody notices when General Glory keels over versus Captain America, who is treated like the end of the world. Maybe he'd get like a 3-line obit in the newspaper and you'd see Superman reading the funny pages right next to it and not notice. But hey, never fear, for a new General Glory was born after the original transferred his powers to a man named Donovan Wallace in the hospital. And naturally, the second generation General Glory has only appeared briefly since. And that is Obscure Character of the Week. If you have a request for Obscure Character of the Week, a comic book or series you'd like to see reviewed on the show, fan art, or a question you'd like me to answer, be sure to send me a message on Geekvolution. Just send me a personal message through our channel at Geekvolution. I'd love to hear from you. Today we're going to take a look at Radioactive Man number 679. Now this, of course, is an older book, but it's a recent acquisition for me. Believe it or not, I actually won this in a poker game. Of course, Radioactive Man is a fictional superhero in the Simpsons universe who looks suspiciously like Homer Simpson, and he got his own series with Bongo Comics in the 90s, along with other Simpsons comics like Bartman and Itchy and Scratchy comics. The series tries to create the illusion that you're getting random issues from the actual long-running Radioactive Man series from the TV show. And for that reason, it has no real numbering system. This issue is 679, and of the 7 issues that were published, there's also number 1, 88, 216, 412, and 1000. This issue is written by Steve Vance, who has a great handle on the Simpsons brand of humor, and also an obvious affinity for comic books. It's a historical parody on big comic book events up to that point, especially poking fun at Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, Secret Wars, and Crisis on Infinite Earths. The title itself should be enough to make you want to read it. Who Washes the Watchmen's Infinite Secrets of Legendary Crossover Night Wars? The plot basically merges Watchmen with Crisis. The government outlaws all superheroes except for one, Radioactive Man, of course. And then parallel universes start to converge, and Radioactive Man meets various versions of himself. Like the best Simpsons stories, this one includes a lot of over-the-top social commentary, and Radioactive Man, whose main character gag is that he's perpetually trapped in a 1950s conservative mindset, has hilarious lines like, "Wow, I can't believe Gloria questioned the president. Doesn't she know it's our duty to do everything our leaders say?" There's a lot of homage and parody to the artwork of the comics it's parodying, like the iconic Dark Knight Returns cover of Batman jumping with a bolt of lightning in the background, except here, Radioactive Man is actually struck by said bolt of lightning and complains about how this always happens because of the metal shards stuck in his head. The book opens like the opening of Watchmen, with a button falling to the streets below while we read Radioactive Man's ridiculous riff on Rorschach's journal. The so-called media watchdogs lick the hands of the thieves who come in broad daylight to steal our freedom. Don't tell me they haven't been housebroken. I also appreciate the little nods to readers who really know their comics, like when Radioactive Man says, "It looks like the end, alone in a world I never made," echoing the old Howard the Duck cover tagline. I'm sure there were other references like this that I didn't even catch. The only real downsides for me are that the references are pretty DC heavy, and there could have been a little more Marvel stuff thrown in. And there was a cop-out ending that could have been a lot cleverer than it was. But all in all, if you can get your hands on this, it's very funny and neat for the avid collector of major landmarks in comic book history. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. I'd like to thank Pop Culture Comics in Overland Park, Kansas, where I picked up all the new books you saw tonight. And thank you very much for watching. Now, don't forget to support your local comic book shop. And don't forget to check out Duke and Eric's news show. I wanted to mention that earlier, actually. I did my little news segment, but I would like to plug their news. If you'd like to see more comic news, make sure you check out Duke and Eric's news show on Geekvolution 1993's channel. And don't forget that wearing a cape does not necessarily enable you to fly. Thanks again for watching, and this is Captain Logan, signing off.